So breaking 2 hours and 50 minutes for the marathon is highly competitive. I think a marathon in under 2 hours and 50 minutes is an elite time, because so few athletes around the world run that fast for the marathon. When you think of all the hundreds of thousands, if not several millions of runners out there trying to break the 250 marathon barrier, the percentage of athletes that do that is probably around, guessing, is probably around 3 to 5%. A very small percentage of athletes do this. So, you know, I've run 2 hours and 19 minutes and 35 seconds for the marathon distance. It was not an easy process whatsoever. And I started running marathons in 2002. Really had no idea how to run the marathon properly. So what I suggest for athletes in terms of preparing for the marathon is definitely have a long-term vision. This is definitely an event that requires a heavy amount of volume work, but also you have to work on developing your speed. For the athlete out there that's trying to break 2 hours and 50 minutes, your easy pace should be anywhere from around 7 minutes and 23 seconds per mile to around 8:09 per mile. If you're not in the United States of America and you follow the kilometers, that's running around 4:35 per K to around 5:04 per K. If you're running at marathon pace, obviously to run a marathon under 2 hours and 50 minutes, you need to run 6:29 mile pace or 4:02 per kilometer for 42.2 kilometers. So, you know, training at marathon pace is 6:29 marathon pace or 4:02 kilometer pace. If you're training down toward your anaerobic threshold, that might mean running around 6:08 mile pace or 3:49 kilometer pace. And if you're trying to break 2 hours and 50 minutes for the marathon, interval pace, you know, if that might be running at around, you know, repeat Ks at 3:30 or repeat miles at 5:39. And if you're training more toward down toward your VO2 max, you do want to be training at VO2 max effort at least once per week. Some athletes that are training to break 2 hours and 50 minutes do double sessions. So that might mean repeat miles in the morning and maybe a shorter tempo or fartlek workout in the evening. I do recommend that for athletes, especially if you're trying to break 2 hours and 50 minutes, because you definitely are going to have to be in superior shape to run this fast for the distance. I was recently, one of my subscribers reached out to me and said that there was an athlete out there that was running no more than 10 miles a week that ran a 2:48 marathon. Okay, that is not the norm. Okay, that's, to me personally, that's an athlete that has an enormous background in other sports, whether that's cycling. I think in this case, the athlete that was running about 10 miles a week that ran a 2:48 marathon, he was very heavily involved in cycling as well. So these are athletes that do have a huge endurance base. So if you're trying to break 2 hours and 50 minutes, I can't stress this enough. A longer buildup is better than a shorter buildup. You want to be paying attention to a minimum of at least 16 weeks, but preferably 20 to 24 weeks to run a marathon under 2 hours and 50 minutes. So the types of workouts I would recommend and the types of workouts that I was doing that helped me run to go from a 2:43.36 marathoner down to a 2:19.35 athlete was repeat miles. I was running, at my fittest, I was running 6 1,600 meter reps under 450 for each rep with a 60 seconds rest in between each one of those reps at 6,000 feet elevation. Okay, I was doing 20-mile long runs, well under 2 hours each time, but I would do that every other week. And then the easy long runs I was doing was anywhere from around 7 to 8 minute mile pace. Okay, so there is a vast difference. If you're trying to run under a 250 marathon, don't get in the habit of running slow and easy every weekend. Okay, that's one major mistake that athletes are making that are trying to run a 250 marathon. Sure, they're doing a great job doing their speed workouts, they're doing tempo runs, but those long runs, they're just running long, slow, and easy every weekend. Yes, it's still important to run long and slow, but just don't get in the habit of doing that every single weekend, because again, it's going to make you very strong endurance-wise, but you have to build that strength and stamina to sustain your goal race pace. Again, 6:29 per mile or 4:02 per kilometer is extremely high quality running. That is you have to be extremely fit to do that. again, speed development is key. You want to improve your body's ability to clear lactic acid more effectively, improving your body's lactate tolerance. And to do that, you have to pay attention to doing those, as I mentioned, those VO2 max workouts are key. Doing longer tempo runs. Okay, if in the past your tempo runs have been around 3 to 5 miles in length, you need to start thinking about how can I extend that to around 7 to 10 miles, working your way out to around 16 kilometers for your tempo runs. Again, the longer period of time you can spend running at your anaerobic threshold, running around 85 to around 88% of your max heart rate, the better. Okay, and that's not something that's going to happen in a matter of three weeks. You have to, that's why I say, if you're training for a marathon in maybe 8 to 12 weeks, it's going to be much more tough and much more difficult for you to do that versus if you're training for 20 to 24 weeks. A minimum buildup of 4 months is vital, but if you're training for 5 to 6 months for a marathon, you're going to have a much higher chance of success breaking the 2 hour and 50-minute barrier. And be prepared to even train up to around about a year to get to a point where you can run this fast. That's another mistake. We all want quick results. And so in order to, in terms of how to run a marathon in 250 or faster, you have to have a high amount of not only tenacity, consistency with your volume, running anywhere from 40 miles a week minimum out to around 80 to 90 miles a week if you really want to do it right. Okay, there's some athletes that need to run that much volume in order to run under 2 hours and 50 minutes. Okay, there's some athletes that just have a higher capacity for running at faster paces and building up much smaller amounts of lactic acid. And then there's other athletes that at the same paces will create much higher amounts of lactic acid. So again, it takes a longer period of time for all of us that have different physical anaerobic capability and lactate tolerance in order to achieve a sub 250 marathon time. But again, going back to the types of workouts I would recommend, some of the things that helped me get down to 2:19:35 was doing 3 3,200 meter reps on the track under 10 minutes flat, with anywhere from around 3 to 4 minutes of recovery in between each one of those reps. Again, it took many months, many years to get to a point where I could do that, especially at 6,000 feet. I was running at Cheyenne Mountain High School in Colorado Springs, which was actually at 6,400 feet. That's where members of the Army World Class Athlete Program, myself, when I was a part of the program myself, even now, the team out at Fort Carson is mostly Kenyan-born athletes that are part of the Army World Class Athlete Program. When I was there, we had 2 Kenyan-born athletes. What's great about those athletes is those Kenyan-born athletes that have U.S. citizenship, those athletes still have to do the same types of military training we had to do in order to become a member of the World Class Athlete Program. It's one of the most difficult units to be a part of in the U.S. Army. Obviously being in the Special Forces is difficult, but being a part of the U.S. Army World Class Athlete Program, you have to have a minimum of a national standard in an Olympic event. Okay, for me personally, when I was back at Fort Carson with the Army World Class Athlete Program, the minimum standard to get in for the marathon was 2 hours and 22 minutes flat. Okay, now it's 2 hours and 15 minutes flat. I was able to eventually run a U.S. Olympic trials A standard time in the marathon, which was back then 2 hours and 19 minutes flat. So some of the workouts, again, you're focusing on doing other types of speed workouts. I would recommend doing is 10 800 meter repetitions. At the early stages of your build-up, that might mean running each one of those reps at 303, 303 flat to 303, and giving yourself 2 minutes rest, and then working your way down to around 236 to 238 per rep, with 60 seconds rest in between each one of those reps. Okay, again, working those repeat quarters on the track, starting off at 124, working your way down to around 110 to 112 per rep, repeat 300s. Again, starting off much more conservative, maybe running 1 minute and 3 seconds per rep, and then working your way down to around 53 to 55 seconds per rep. Same with 200 meter reps, starting off at around 42 seconds per rep, and then working your way down to being able to do those repetitions at around 35 to 36 seconds per rep. Again, you want to be much more conservative in the early stages of your buildup, maybe doing less repetitions at slower paces, with more rest, and then working your way to when you're much more anaerobically fit, you want to do more repetitions at faster paces, but with less rest in between each 20 repetitions. So again, to break a 2 hour and 50-minute marathon, you always alternate your long runs. Run easy one weekend, followed the next weekend by a faster, varied pace long run. Your long runs should be much shorter in the early stages of your build-up. Might mean 6 to 7 miles in the early stages, and then working your way to around 20 miles or 32 kilometers to around 23 to 24 miles in length. Okay, so and the paces per mile or paces per kilometer for those long runs should be much more aggressive as you get fitter. But always, and make sure you're jogging on those easy days. A big mistake so many athletes trying to break the 250 marathon are making is they're running too slow on fast days and they're running too fast on easy days. So again, fix these problems. You know, I have created running courses as well as training plans on RunDreamAchieve.com that are there for you to help take you to the next level. So definitely check out those out on RunDreamAchieve.com. Check out the resources below these videos as well. They're definitely there to help speed up your recovery and speed up your success rate. If you have any other questions regarding the marathon, feel free to reach out to me, or any other event or topic. I will definitely respond back to you. I wish you all the very best in breaking the 250 marathon. I know you can do it, and definitely let me know when you do it. So I wish you all the best, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.